Hello and welcome to Furious Driving and another episode of Breaking News. And today we are in and using at last the Alpha 159. And I'm not actually working on the 159 today. I had thought maybe I'd be able to find a radio code so I could start listening to radio, but I've still not achieved that just yet. But I am going over to the barn at the moment to go and look at another radio, because the first thing I've got to do is put a radio back into the Mini Cooper after way too long with no radio. So thank you to D&D Services. I paid £30 for to get that radio decoded again. Secondly, I've managed to break a Mazda. Now, Mazda MX5s, Eunos Roadsters, Miatas, they rot like crazy. Everyone knows that. They don't break though, but somehow that's what mine's done, and I'm a little bit concerned. So let's go to the radio first, because that's easy. Then we'll go and look at why my Mazda is not running. Okay, the first car we're going to do some tinkering with is this, the Y-Reg Mini Cooper, the 2001 pre-production Mini, which has been sat in the barn for a little while actually. I was going to go and take it out, get it taxed, ready for June, which is only a week or so away, when I realised that the MOT ran out at the beginning of May, so I'm not going to be taking it out. And the important remedial work that's going to be done on this car to make this thing ready for the summertime is putting an original radio back into it. Now, you might remember, if you're a long-term viewer of this channel, you might have seen yonks ago, when I first got this car, it came with a Sony head unit, which is a really good radio, but not the original. Because it's such a historically significant car, I'm trying to make this car as original as possible. And so I went out and found an original, correct spec R50 CD player head unit for this car, as it would have had when it was brand new. I sent it away and got it decoded and then cleared and ready to recode for this car, because the way these cars work, they're kind of linked to the car's ECU for security, so you can't just pop the radio out and pop it into another car, because it has to know that it's the correct car and radio pairing. So you have to get it sort of de-paired and then set to be recoded. Anyway, I had that done, and it was working fine. I disconnected the battery because the car was in storage, reconnected it, I fluffed putting the code in, and it locked itself and it went into permanent wait mode. And so for absolutely ages, I've been running around with the, a nice satin side bits missing and a little JBL Bluetooth speaker down in the cubby. This, incidentally though, if you can see, it's in the dark, is a genuine Mini accessory sunglasses cubby, which is quite hard to find. I think I found through one of the Facebook groups. That was a really nice little thing to add. Anyway, so this radio, it's actually, it's an Alpine, so decent quality. It's going to go back in now, and I can have the proper tunes. Well, that's better, because for the last year or so, whenever I tried to turn this radio on, it said wait, not code. So let's put the code in. I won't show you what it is, obviously. Yes! We've got a radio again! It's only taken like a couple of years, so yay! So I have finally got to drive my Eunos Roadster with its new wheels and tyres and suspension setup, and it is fantastic, although I only got to drive it for a very short distance, up to the local MOT station and then back again after it overheated in the car park and they abandoned the test. I didn't film it because it's such a short drive. I thought I'll do some proper driving and a proper this is what the car's like video afterwards. Never assume. Right, let's just go and investigate this. Right, so here is the engine which has done all of the overheating. Now, when the MOT man said that had been a problem with it gushing out hot water, I didn't really know where to begin. I checked the radiator when I first picked the car up, and it was down about a litre or so. I'd put in, actually maybe 2 litres even of water, which had spurted out of the overflow tank. He couldn't tell me what precisely had happened. It had been idling for a couple of minutes apparently. He went to go move it onto the MOT ramp, and then he noticed it was starting to gush water out. I don't know how long it had been idling for though. I don't know if he'd been letting it get hot for the emissions test beforehand, moving cars around to get it into the ramp. I don't actually know. So there's a couple of possibilities this could be, and I did try obviously running the car for a while to go and see if it would overheat here in the driveway and give me some kind of clue, but it was rather stubbornly refusing to go beyond the midpoint on the temperature gauge, so it wasn't getting to the point where it needed to kick the fans on. There are 2 fans fitted, and I couldn't see anything going wrong. The only thing that was a bit weird is this sensor here on top of the thermostat. I opened this up to make sure it was connected. It was full of water. I'm not sure how it would be full of water because I've not washed the engine and the bonnet's been down, and when I disconnected it, it didn't make any difference to either the car's running or to the temperature gauge. So who knows? Anyway, so there's a number of possibilities that this could be the problem. Could be something as simple as the thermostat has failed. It could be that the relay or the fuse for the fans has failed, so they're not kicking in. It could be the fans themselves aren't working. It could be the water pump is at fault. It could have been just like an air bubble in the cooling system. If it had run low and then gulped some air through somehow, that might have been the issue. I mean, the worst possible scenario would be that this could have had gasket failure. So I'm going to do a few tests and try and figure out why it overheated, and I'm curious to know why it won't happen again, because I drove it to and from the MOT station with no issue at all, and idled it here for ages without any problem at all. Interesting. So first off, just to make sure the fans do actually work, using the power probe that someone very kindly sent me through the junk in the trunk a while ago, hooks up to the car's own battery, touched it on there. Yep, that works. So we've got a functioning fan, or at least one functioning fan. Make that two. Although I noticed there is a broken connector just here, and there's kind of verdigris on this connector, so I wonder if maybe this is a bad connection. I found this straight away. So I know the fans work, but I don't know if the relays, the fuse, the sensors work, and I don't know if the water pump works. So I need this thing to get back up to temperature so I can see if it starts circulating water and if the fans try to come on. So we'll go sit here and let the thing warm up. Right, we've been running now for about 20 minutes, and finally, I mean really finally, the needle has crept beyond the center point in the temperature gauge. So it's getting to the point now where it should actually be kicking the fans on, and it still isn't. So I'm thinking, as the fans definitely work, it's going to be the fan relay or fan fuse that's the problem. Okay, yeah, I'm calling it at this point. The fans should definitely be on by now. There's no way. Yeah, the header tank is now bubbling like crazy. I think this is on the cusp of overflowing. There is no way the fans would not be on with the engine at that temperature. So I think we've found our culprit. It's not the head gasket, thank goodness. And also to confirm, because I know you're going to ask this, is the thermostat opening? Is the water pump running? Yes, this top pipe is red hot and I can feel water in there. It's too hot to touch pretty much. So water has been circulating through the radiator and through this pipe, and the fact it took so long for the engine to start to overheat suggests it was circulating as well as it can. It's actually quite a new radiator in this car. So I think it may well be this sensor here is the problem. The thermostat works, the fans work, the water pump works. The only thing I haven't checked is the head gasket, but that thing was running beautifully for 25 minutes, no problem at all, apart from the heat. So the only thing left is this sensor here. So if I ground this out, a pin in there to earth point with ignition on, there we go, fans are working, easy fix, it's that sensor. So it's a couple of days, £15, and I wait for the postman from eBay to turn up, and this is a new sensor, fitted, thanks to a deep socket, and the old one is going in the bin. I've got to say, this one is really odd looking. It looks like this one was actually leaking through itself and bubbling water or coolant through the sensor, and that's why it failed. So hopefully this one won't have that same problem. There we go. I'm going to call that probably fixed. Well, I'm really glad that's done. I'm just glad I didn't actually need the compression tester in the end, because that would have meant serious problems were at bay. More serious than the fact my Eunos Roadster badge has come off the front. It was melting. The glue was melting in the heat, believe it or not. But since I've got the car out, I've got an hour or two of time on my hands, I'm going to have another stab at that catalytic converter, see if I can get the broken stud out before I write that cat off and consign it to the dustbin. It might work. Maybe if I get it really hot, I can undo that bolt. Who knows? It didn't work. I've now broken both studs off the back of the catalytic converter. However, the thing is so rusted in place, it's got no give or movement in it whatsoever, so I think it's actually still going to be briefly okay. I'll probably be able to get through the MOT like that, because yeah, it's, although the studs aren't there, the thing isn't moving. I'll just fire it up and see if it's blowing at all. I don't think it is. I was very wrong. It's doing all of the blowing. That is not going to pass the MOT. I guess I've been buying a new catalytic converter this week. Right, okay, so not the best solution. This is your typical 5-minute job that's turned into a 3-day ordeal thanks to one broken bolt. Although in this case it's actually 2 broken bolts. So I have whipped the exhaust pipe off, so you can see there's a big gaping hole just there. The exhaust is now on the floor over there, looking a bit sorry for itself. And I've got a couple of choices here as to what I do next. I can either cut these off flush and try and drill them out. I can try and get them red hot with the induction heater and wind them out. But what I've got here is a heat shield over the end of the catalytic converter, and there's like a flange, so there's a bit of space behind there, so if I get some access behind that I could put a nut and bolt through that if I can drill that out. And I could replace this with a cat delete pipe. It's sort of semi-legal because this is a 1989 car, you can kind of get away with it. However, the lambda sensor does need to go into the delete or cat or whatever you put in there, and that is going to be an absolute nightmare to remove, so I'm quite keen not to have to play with that. Or I can go and buy a new catalytic converter, only about 60 to 80 pounds. Again though, same deal. That's going to be, well, the other end will just snap off again, I'll just replace the bolts. This end though, it's going to be a bit of a pain. So yeah, I'm going to try first of all getting these things red hot. Yeah, see if I can replace these studs with either new studs or just basic nuts and bolts. Hopefully this will be not too terrible a job. Yeah, right. Camera cuts to 2 hours later with every tool I own on the driveway, look of despair and an angle grinder in my hand. But I can't get a proper grip on it, so I've got the welder out. I've cranked up the power quite a lot. I'm going to weld a couple of nuts onto this thing so I can try and get them red hot and use that to break them off instead. Ow. Well, either it's turning or the welder's coming off with the nut. I suspect it's the latter. Yep, it was the latter. Second time lucky. Second time unlucky. Drill time. Plan C, or D possibly, I've lost count. Cut that flat, drill it out. That is the new last option.
4 hours later.
Finally some progress. After cutting these off, drilling through a pilot with a 4mm HSS bit and going back with an 8mm HSS, finally getting some holes through I can put some nuts through, or nuts and bolts through. Even if I get a smaller one that's not big enough, I can then take it down to an exhaust place and get them to sort it out later. Phew, incredibly it is finally done. I've got rid of the old bolts, cut a hole in the heat shield so I can actually get to the back of them and tighten them up. We can put the new exhaust on. This is literally a 10-minute job that's taken all day. Hooray! Ah, done. It's always really handy to put a bit of bulldog on the rubbers of the exhaust, makes it slip together so much easier. Ow! Those didn't come with gaskets, so once I've got everything lined up, I'm going to go back in and put some exhaust paste in here. There we go, got the whole new shiny stainless catback system hanging under the car and looking good. Now let's see if it sounds any better. Right, now the proof is in the pudding or the brimming. Fire up. There we go. Lovely. Job done. Looking an awful lot smarter down the back of the car now. I'm very, very happy with that. I really thought that wasn't going to finally finish. I thought we were going to be giving up on this and taking it down somewhere to get that done. But no, it is actually finished. The car is now ready to go and get MOT'd. I can drive this away, get an MOT on it and be done. And just enjoy the car for another year now. So thank you for watching. This has been an unusual series of disasters, as we kind of expect in Furious Driving, but we have overcome. We're in a blowing free MX5 situation, which is all good. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that kind of business, and we'll see you again next time driving something completely different.